Go.
Thank you very much for listening to me today. Thank you very much to Chris and Katie and the team for inviting me along today to speak about my journey from being a professional footballer all the way through to being a media pundit for BT Sport and other companies such as TalkSport, Channel 5 when I did the Football League show, as well as other companies as well. But my journey throughout my life has been difficult because I suffer with dyslexia. And I wanted to talk to you today about how dyslexia has actually modelled me into who I am today and why I stand here in front of you. When I think back to when I was younger, when I was about 5 or maybe 6 or 7, and you're going into an exam at a school, and you know that you're going into that exam failing already as a young person, it's quite demoralising. And you look at the questions and you can't quite understand what they mean, but you're absolutely trying your very, very best to try and understand what the answer is. And you're actually filling in questions because you feel that it's actually better than nothing, that you actually just put answers in. So when the teacher turns over the piece of paper, that you feel that actually, oh, they've answered the question, but they haven't quite got it right. And that was very, very hard to take. And then when you leave the exam room and your mates are kind of saying, oh, how easy was that? And you actually walk out thinking, I've failed that. And you failed it even before you'd walked in. And then the thing I found really hard when I was at school early on was seeing the exam results posted up on a wall. And you're there with 15, 20%. And people laugh at you for being thick. People laugh at you because you're not actually very clever. But actually, inside, you actually have a lot of qualities that can actually be very, very successful in life. But unfortunately, sometimes that takes a little bit of time for people to understand, for people to work out, and for people to say, do you know what? I'll give someone a chance with dyslexia. I can't even spell dyslexia. It's just one of those things that that has affected me throughout my life. And we talk about depression, we talk about mental health, which you can take medication for, but for dyslexic people, it's hereditary. And you have to live with it on a day-to-day basis. But some of the most successful people in the world suffer with dyslexia. Richard Branson is a prime example of that. Steve Jobs, Albert Einstein, Muhammad Ali, have all gone on to be pinnacles of people in life that people look up to. And I may not be the biggest personality on this stage today. There'll be people after me that have had by far better careers than I, but I have worked so hard in life to get where I wanted to be. And sport was always a way out from the classroom and suffering with dyslexia, that it built a real backbone in my DNA, in my person who I am today, to prove people wrong, that it's something that lives with me day by day, that if you take rejection, you have to work even harder. And I've had to do that throughout my career of where I am today. Football was something that I've always enjoyed, I've always loved, and sport is something that I've excelled at to a certain extent. And it's a rejection thing that has always found it very, very difficult for me to take, because when you hear me talk today and when you hear other people talk today with dyslexia, people will say that actually, no, you do know what you're talking about. Actually, you seem very confident. But a dyslexic person finds a way around of being different and being confident and learning principles in a workplace that can actually be very, very effective, given the time and given the understanding that actually you can bring something to the table that people with talent brings. In football, talent is one thing, but if you hear the top people talk today, I listened to Piers Morgan talking about Cristiano Ronaldo when he did his interview on ITV, and the one thing that Piers Morgan asked Cristiano Ronaldo was, what's your best trait? It wasn't an overhead kick, it wasn't pace, it wasn't a shot power, it was his mental attitude. And mental attitude in life for a dyslexic can be very, very powerful to where you want to go in life. And that early rejection as a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old when you're failing in exams, and I always hated it when teachers used to come in and say to me, "Oh, Adam, you've got your special needs class now, so you had to go and learn how to read and learn how to write as an 8, 9-year-old, which is quite embarrassing in front of people. And when they call it special needs as well, that's even harder to take. But what it does is builds a character within yourself that you take on a day-to-day basis, that you can be somebody in life and you can actually go on to achieve great things in whatever you want to do. My goals in life was to be a professional footballer. That's all I ever wanted to be. And the 3 things that I set my standards to, and you do that sometimes where you always try and set where you want to go and what you want to do, and you try and do whatever you can to achieve those goals, was to play for my hometown club, which is Brighton. And I managed to do that. I ended up being captain of Brighton, and I achieved that goal. My second goal was to play to Celtic, and I managed to do that as well. After the week that Tottenham have had, I always wanted to play for Tottenham. I wouldn't want to play for them this week, but I managed to play for them in an FA Cup game, which was a dream come true for me. And I go back to that determination as a dyslexic to prove people wrong. That people always say, you're never going to go far in life. And when you go to your career jobs and they say, well, what do you want to be? And you say a professional footballer. And they say, well, you can't be that. Well, you can be that if you've got the determination and the mindset, which a lot of dyslexic people have, that we may not be the cleverest of writing things down. We may not be the cleverest in reading. You know, I still read to my 8-year-old and struggle with words sometimes in his book. But it didn't really affect me in terms of playing football, but it affected me in terms of when a manager said you're not good enough, then you go again and you try that determination to prove people wrong. When you were told as a 6 and 7-year-old that you can't read and you can't write and you can't go anywhere. There is so many great examples of dyslexic people that can be so influential in your business of where you want to go and what you want to do. Because what we do is work harder than anybody. And when I retired in 2013, I was at a bit of a crossroads in terms of where I wanted to go and where I wanted to be. And I retired at 29, and I'd made some money, but I'd not made anywhere near enough to retire and live off my morals and think, do you know what, I've got 4 or 5 years where I can do what I want and go and try different things. I almost had to go back into work straight away, and I had a decision to go into the media or to go into coaching. And going back to that determination of where I wanted to go, I felt the media would be somewhere that would be good for my career. The problem is with the media these days is that a lot of people are picked on who you play for and what your name is. And there are by far greater players that are commentating at the moment than what I've ever did. But I went back to that 6 and 7-year-old where the determination to work harder than anybody, to take the time and effort to go and research as much as possible, to learn teams and go and learn a trade, has given me the opportunity now to work for one of the biggest companies in England, in BT Sport. And when I first started, I was given a couple of games and they say, okay, well, we'll see what you can do. And I had to go away and just use the ethics that I've always learned throughout my career and all my life. Work hard, do your best, and you will get somewhere. And thankfully now I work for BT Sport, and you know, I cover almost 80 games a season now. I cover the Vanarama National League, which is a product of their production, as well as England internationals, under 21s. I do FA Cups as well. I do French football. And I've managed to build myself a career from that sometimes when you sent those emails off in 2013 to heads of companies like Simon Reed, for example, at Eurosport, I sent him an email, who I am and what I wanted to do, and I didn't even get a reply back. And when he was looking for new voices in his company, I'd met a guy called Dave Farrer who said that, you know, I'd be able to get in contact with Simon. And sometimes you need that chance and you need that opportunity. And he rang me up and said, I'll give you a game. And I managed to do a game, and I've worked for him ever since. And last year I went to Jakarta and I went out as his main co-commentator for the Asian Games. And, you know, he's a big advocate of mine. And what you learn as well as a dyslexic is, even though you may not have the talent, you may not have the tools that sometimes you see in a job interview, but the other side of it is the work rate, and you learn so much from different people in and around you that you're almost like a musician. If you listen to your record collection like mine, all your musicians are just taking pieces from other people and they just make it into their own, and you make it into your, you know, your own collection of who you are and where you want to be. And you've got to respect people as well in the job that you do. And people like that, when you respect people and you work hard, people see that as a massive thing to go far in life. I've just completed my B licence for coaching, which you take to try and be a manager. And you go back into a classroom environment and you get given this sheet of paper where you are told to fill out a session plan. So you would kind of watch a video on the screen, as up here now, and then they'll just freeze it and they'll say, right, you need to put a session plan together of training, defending a goal or attacking a goal and whatever. But you actually have to fill out a sheet of paper of, you know, the psychology and everything else like that. And I went up to one of the coaches and I said, I don't quite understand what this means in terms of what I need to write down. And he explained it to me. And a couple of days later, same thing happened again. I went back up to him again and said, I don't quite understand again what this means. Where I kind of get what I want to do, but I can't actually project it onto where I want to go and how you put it onto a field of play. And after about the third time, he kind of just went, stop. Right, everybody sit down and listen. And I was in a class of Ashley Cole, Patrice Evra, you know, great players. And he just said, right, you've got this sheet of paper in front of you. This is what it means. We can't be here for you all the time. We can't hold your hands and tell you what to do. And I felt a little bit embarrassed. He didn't actually single me out, but I knew he was talking about me. And I went up to him afterwards and I said, look, I'm really sorry for, you know, constantly asking you the question, but I want to get it right. So I want to make sure that what I do is correct. That takes me on further in what I want to be as a coach. And I said, the reason I keep asking you is because I'm a dyslexic and I don't actually understand what you mean. And his face just kind of just went, and he went very quiet, and he actually apologized to me and said, I'm really sorry. And then funnily enough, the next speech he gave was, you know, if anyone wants actually want to talk to me about stuff, you're more than welcome to. So that was very, very rewarding for me. Give dyslexics an opportunity in your workplace, because, you know, we're good, humble people and we work probably as hard as anybody. We may not have the natural talent, but we have an idea of where we want to go and what we want to do. And I'd like to thank you for your time of listening to me. I've got a couple of questions if you want to ask me anything you want. I'm more than happy to answer your questions.
Big hats off to you, mate. Done really well in your career. Fantastic. I had the same difficulties that you had at school as well, where I was put in class 5 and all that. My son's going through that as well now. I think it's something we need to get back into education, teach teachers how to teach people with abilities and not just lump them into the lower classes all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a great video on YouTube about how the world has changed in terms of cars and technology. But 100 years ago, we all sat at desks at school and we all looked at a class, you know, we all looked at a blackboard, and now it's computerized screens. And I don't think the education system has changed enough to help dyslexics and understand it. It's something that can happen, but you need to understand how to talk to a dyslexic. And I think education over the coming years needs to change in terms of the way that life has changed, that it's not just about passing geography and passing history, it's actually learning life qualities as well. I do agree with you that the education system needs to be looked at. I don't think dyslexia is tackled anywhere near as enough as mental health or obesity or gambling or anything else like that. So I would like to think from the government and people like that in the education system over the years now that this could change. I've never spoken about dyslexia before. This is the first time I've ever done it. None of my commentators know I suffer with dyslexia. I find it embarrassing sometimes to talk about with them when I mispronounce a name or I don't understand how to say something in a terms or a phrase. So it's a big day for me. But I agree as well that the education system now needs to change. As I mentioned before, I used to call it special needs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not, you know, someone who needs help up the stairs. You know, I just need to understand how to read and write.
That's off to you, mate. Well done.
Okay.